Now, Washington mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. At AM 630. WMAL.
It's 7:06 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. Brian Wilson, Brian Neiman in the house today, and joining us on the line, a guy that he helps us understand complicated legal things. And, in these confusing times, we need somebody to just give us a clear-cut answer, can sort of separate the wheat from the chaff.
Right.
And that would be Joe diGenova, our legal analyst. Hey, Joe, how are you?
Morning, Joe.
Fine. I'm better than the U.S. Ryder Cup.
Yeah. Hold on a second. Joe, did you watch the Ryder Cup yesterday?
I watched every stroke.
Thank
it
you.
was horrifying, and I got to tell you something. Steve Stricker was responsible for the loss.
I thank you. See, Joe diGenova, a great American, watching the Ryder Cup because it was
spectacular.
It was fantastic.
It was one of the great sports events of all time.
I agree with you completely. I don't know why Wilson doesn't at least give it a try.
Because it's golf.
Even my 7-year-old was into it.
Brian's worried about the loss of bacon in the world.
Well, indeed I am.
Which I agree. I'm a little bit concerned about
that.
Well.
Okay.
And I don't think Steve Stricker should get any bacon for the rest of his life.
Listen, that guy should just stay home.
Yeah.
Fascinating discussion. Can we move on?
Yes.
All right, good. I just think golf, goodness. All right, so we got a lot of things we want to talk to you about. First of all, Fast and Furious. Yep. Univision has done a really what seems to be a top-notch investigative piece that opens up your eyes to a whole lot of what happened on the other side of the border when these guns crossed over. Any thoughts?
Yes, this is the revenge of Univision. Remember when the president was on the other day and did an interview with them, and they ripped to him on
it? Sure did.
Ask him a lot of tough questions.
They have come alive. I mean, these guys have been asleep at the wheel on news in general, but particularly about Obama. They've been kissing his tush for almost 4 years. They are after him because of the DREAM Act and his failure to do it. So they picked Fast and Furious because of the obvious Latino connection with Mexico. Fabulous reporting. They shamed the American media, the so-called mainstream American media, with new discoveries, in-depth investigation, spent some resources. The picture is worse, but the rest of the American media doesn't care.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see whether some are sort of being forced to pick up on it. There's this other thing. There's this guy named Kevin O'Reilly, White House staffer, national security staffer, and he apparently got some either formal or informal briefings about what was going on with Fast and Furious when he was at the White House.
Right.
And then as soon as this became known, he was immediately shipped to Iraq, and they've kept him away from anybody who can ask any questions whatsoever. Now Congress says you need to come forward and tell us what you know. Will they have any luck?
Oh, not before the election. It won't make any difference. They may have some luck after the election. He's not beyond subpoena just because he's in a foreign country. Whether he's employed by the U.S. government or is a private citizen, he should be available. They may try to claim the president may try to claim executive privilege again, as he's done in other areas. We shall see.
I have to say, when watching that report, and it was a great piece of journalism for sure, one of the things that Univision says happened, the ATF thought that, well, we can't track these guns. We're going to put what amounts to a tracking device, or almost like a walkie-talkie kind of device, inside the guns that they would purchase at Radio Shack.
Right.
Yeah.
And according to Univision, they were concerned because they didn't think the batteries would last that long.
Right.
And then they quote somebody within the federal government as saying, well, the way we'll track these things is we'll find out when they show up at crime scenes. If that is true, I mean, that is just astonishing to think that's the mindset of this.
We've been talking about this for, quite a while on this show. Mm-hmm. And I told you guys early on that this was a disaster that started in the field. The administration bears major responsibility for not managing it properly and not being forthcoming about it when it was discovered. You had one of the world's worst U.S. Attorney's Office running this in Phoenix, Arizona. These are the guys that have gone after Joe Arpaio, remember. Mm-hmm. These guys are bad assistant U.S. attorneys, and the ATF has been an out-of-control agency for over 30 years, and this proves it in spades. Even though they've been, consumed by the Justice Department, the management of them has been outrageous.
And the other thing that popped up out of the story was that apparently it wasn't just Arizona, gun stores in Arizona that were making these purchases. They were allowing these things to go through. There are other states as well, and they wound up in other countries outside of Mexico as well.
It's absolutely outrageous. The administration has paid no price for it politically. Darrell Issa, tried to do a good job. I think they probably misfired in a number of areas in the investigation, but This is basically the American media giving the administration a pass, and it's pretty disgraceful, but that's where we are, guys. That's where we are.
The High Court is coming back, and it looks like, from what we're beginning to see, that they're going to take up the issue of affirmative action. Yes. Your thoughts?
University preferences are the key issue here. Back in 2003, there were 2 cases from the University of Michigan. The court basically said you can't use these, that there is a compelling interest in a diverse learning environment, so racial preferences were permissible, but only if they were severely limited. Well, that's now, the situation is so bad in American universities with racial preferences being given out automatically that the court has taken cases again. And I'm going to make a prediction today. The affirmative action will be ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, with John Roberts writing the opinion. They've had it. And the reason is Sandra Day O'Connor is gone from the court. Sam Alito is on the court. John Roberts is on the court. It will probably be a 5-4 decision striking down racial preferences in higher education, and this will be the end of affirmative action.
Well, hold it. We made predictions about how Obamacare was going to go, and that didn't turn out so accurate. Why do you think that the Chief Justice will go that direction?
Because this is how he's going to save his reputation in the conservative community. He will be uninvited to more weddings than anybody in history as a result of Obamacare. He hopes to regain some street cred with the conservative movement. This is also something about which he has spoken while he was on the D.C. circuit. He called this racial preferences, literally, he called it sordid business in one of his opinions. So it's pretty clear that he has, through oral arguments, shown a dislike for racial preferences. Coupling Sam Alito's positions in these cases with him, you end up with 5-4 for affirmative action going out of higher education. That'll be the case. The cases all involve higher education, so that'll be the situation. The other thing is, studies have now shown that racial preferences are used automatically by universities, which is the exact opposite of what the Supreme Court ordered. And I think the court has basically had it with American higher education and their scofflaw approach to affirmative action.
All right, we're 10 years on right now from the anniversary of the sniper shootings that obviously greatly affected the D.C. community. What's your takeaway 10 years later from the way it was handled? Obviously, it's a very tough case to crack.
Well, it's like a lot of cases in the criminal law. You go back and you look at it and you realize some simple things were not done at the very beginning by law enforcement that would have helped end the crisis sooner. I think one of the things you learn from cases like this is that when you have something that's this horrible, and remember, you recall people could not function. They were
it was more devastating, I think, than 9/11 to this area.
Absolutely. Remember when the FBI agent was shot at the shopping mall, the woman, and killed? That sent a shudder through the community, rightfully so. And law enforcement, they responded the best they could, but it was not their finest hour because they ignored a lot of evidence. There was not information sharing between Montgomery County and other people. You recall that Doug Gansler got himself into a lot of trouble after Malveaux and Boyd were actually arrested. He tried to supersede the federal authorities, and there was a big fight over who should try them first. The feds obviously won eventually. I think the legacy of that case, besides the trauma, is that there is always competition between law enforcement agencies, and when that happens, the citizens lose.
Yeah. All right, Joe. Good to have you on as always. Thanks very much.